So, Laurie, when it comes to the industrial metaverse, are we there yet?
So we don't think the metaverse has arrived yet, but we can see its outlines. It's immersive. It's a 3D geospatial user experience. It's real time. It's got to have real time interactions with real time data. It's also got to be engineering grade, no loss of data fidelity, always on. Data's got to be persisted, changes tracked, interoperable, right? The content isn't trapped into one platform. That's really key. And ultimately, it's got to be collaborative, empowering multi-user interactions.
And Richard, if I may, from your perspective,
Yeah.
are we there yet? Or
Oh, I agree completely with Lori. I think we're seeing what it can do. Understanding that the metaverse, as we see it, is the next generation of the internet, but in 3D. And the goal is that you can go from virtual world to virtual world as seamless as you do today from website to website. That's not there yet, but we are seeing the implications of what a virtual world and a digital twin scenario can do for the industrial side of corporations and things. So we are seeing that the impact of what it will do once it's all interconnected is really going to take off.
now, last week during GTC, there were so many sessions in terms of around the industrial metaverse and standards and interoperability. And if I may, I would agree, we're not there yet, but there's been some huge advancements just in the pace of the last 6, 12 months. Richard, from your perspective, any key stepping stone
Oh,
that
sure.
you've seen?
Yeah, the adoption of USD or Universal Scene Description, that is can be thought of as the HTML of 3D, the interconnecting, the plumbing of what's going to make these virtual worlds work together seamlessly. And we're seeing the advancement of the format and we're seeing the adoption of it by many, many companies now. So I think any company in 3D either is supporting USD today or has a plan to soon. And that's really going to be a key factor for what we see as the next generation of the internet.
And Laurie, from your perspective, any the main achievements you'd call out?
Yeah, so I think, the first phase was really about discovery and working with partners, whether it's um, technology partners or industry partners. So there was really a level of discovery. But within the past year, what's really exciting is the productization of these capabilities so that more firms, in my area is infrastructure, so that more infrastructure firms can really benefit from incorporating this technology into the work that they're already doing. And speaking of partners, we've doubled down and we've worked with NVIDIA. So a great example of that is the release of Lumen RT for NVIDIA Omniverse. It enables real-time immersion of 3D, 4D experiences, enhancing visualization and simulation. So for example, such as construction scheduling when combined with Synchro 4D. Um, the other thing I think we're seeing is leading organizations really achieving measurable benefits. So, for example, WSP is winning projects and strengthening their stakeholder engagements on important infrastructure projects. For example, the multi-billion-dollar I-5 interstate bridge replacement. So, seeing organizations take advantage of this technology and achieving measurable benefits is, I think, a key achievement for the year.
I've been around long enough in the IT industry, the .com, and we had IoT before it was called IoT, and we chatted about interoperability there as well. But I certainly would see the interoperability I've seen in the last 12 months across the industrial metaverse, and people, my tool and your tool and their competitors, and yet they all plug together, and that whole interoperability is making leaps and bounds. Now, I'm also a big believer in a good dose of realism. And in your session last week, you had a very good dose of realism. As I say, we're not there yet. There are some challenges ahead. So if I may, Laurie, if you kind of look out the next 12 months, what are the next kind of barriers we need to overcome?
Yeah, so with any technology, adoption is key, and I'm always a big believer in, we have to look at people, process, and technology. So for infrastructure, enabling infrastructure digital twins, whether it's in design, construction, or operations, and ensuring that those infrastructure digital twins are being synchronized that's really the foundation. That's really a challenge that we have to work to overcome with leading organizations, with all organizations, being able to leverage, enabling them being able to leverage benefits at a larger scale. So these infrastructure digital twins, they've got to create, they've got to contain 3D graphics with engineering grade millimeter fidelity, but they've also got to align rich engineering structured BIM data, as well as context from drone photogrammetry and that sort of thing. So in order to do that, we've got to leverage people, process, and technology and tackle the change management and incorporate the work that they're already doing as part of their infrastructure workflows into the synchronization of these infrastructure digital twins.
Richard, from your perspective?
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think, one of the things that we've done by building Omniverse is to provide that platform that all companies can connect to. That helps alleviate the competitive parts that you were speaking about, because now anybody can connect their applications to the platform or build on the platform, et cetera. And by doing so, they're immediately allowed to collaborate and simulate what they're working on. But to your point, one of the biggest challenges is it requires an RTX system. It requires to have some good hardware that's going to drive all of this, and that's not readily available for everyone. So one of the biggest initiatives that's going on right now is to move Omniverse to the cloud. And so you saw at GTC our announcement about bringing all the platform as a service to the cloud, so that anybody will be able to access it via a browser. That's our end goal, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have for the near future right now, is to make that happen, and that's what's going on.
And if I may, with the work that's been done on interoperability, bringing things to the masses through the cloud, so the barrier to entry, if you like, starts getting lower.
Yeah.
But Lori, I'll come back to one thing as well that caught my attention, and a great comment in the panel last week, and you just mentioned it there earlier as well. You spoke about you need high fidelity data, but what I see is a lot of companies struggle with, they go, oh, we're going to have the Industrial Metaverse and they're going to have a digital twin, and they go, oh, well, we have a lot of digital twins. But it's joining them together, and it's about the quality of the data and breaking down those data silos. And you have a term, dark data. All this data is there, but we're not using it. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I always like to look at the why. Why is that so important? And, to double down on the comment that you made about interoperability, no one organization is going to be able to create all of the applications needed in order to solve all of the world's problems. And that's why this interoperability working, whether it's the Bentley Infrastructure Cloud or Omniverse, working with our partners, we want to ensure that data can flow across these different platforms and working together. But the challenges around designing, constructing, and operating the world's infrastructure is just more complex. So from workforce challenges, so for example, a recent AEC advisor study indicated that the war for talent is the number one thing keeping CFOs of engineering firms up at night, to increasing client demands. Infrastructure projects need to be delivered more quickly. They need to be more sustainable. Addressing all of these complexities requires a more holistic view of infrastructure data and the need to expose it, ensuring mobility of data across the infrastructure lifecycle and across technology platforms as well. Being able to visualize, analyze, and simulate across the entire design, that's why we need to break the data out of engineering files and synchronize infrastructure digital twins.
Absolutely.
No, it's a very valid point. And if I may, Richard,
Yeah.
In the world I live in the energy industry, you go into an energy company and then, we've loads of digital twins, and they're in this system and that system,
Yes,
and they're all in
exactly.
different data. So if I may, in Omniverse, you have all these connectors.
Yeah, you can connect, you can extend, customize. But to your point that you made a few minutes ago about the early days of the internet, the dot-coms, right? If we remember those days when companies tried to keep their silos intact, And so you had to have a certain extension in your browser, or this browser didn't work. And we saw what happened. It didn't work. You can't be a walled garden if you're going to be open and extensible. And so everything changed with HTML being ratified and extended and built upon by all companies. We're seeing the same thing happen now. There's no company that's going to be able to retain a walled garden and play in this new world. You have to be open with your data. You have to be extensible. You have to allow others to connect to it, customize it, and put it into their specific workflow. If you don't, you're going to be isolated, and you're going to be isolated and eventually left behind. And we've seen that happen in the past, which we're seeing the companies today embrace this because they realize open and extensible is the way of the future. And so these are the things that are taking place.
I couldn't agree more. And we even saw it with the world of IoT 10 years ago, right? Again, it was very individualized systems, but now that interoperability, people are thinking about it from day one, from the ground up.
Exactly.
And Lori, if I may, you also made a great point there. Again, with a lot of the companies I'd work with, they'd see what Bentley are doing with Siemens and NVIDIA are doing with BMW, and they go, oh God, look at, that's incredible. But it's like, how do they must be doing completely new workflows. Oh, I can't do that. And Laura, you made the point, it's all about integrating into the existing workflows, right?
Absolutely. So, for good reason, there's lots of standardization in infrastructure workflows. So, for example, ISO 19650. And the reliable synchronization of infrastructure digital twins has got to work as part of these existing workflows. And that's the fastest way to close the gap between the development of this amazing technology and an organization's ability to capitalize on it. So, we're working to augment these existing file-based workflows with data-centric workflows. So a great example of this is a federated multidisciplinary design review of an infrastructure design project. So design work is performed using engineering CAD applications, and that produces files. And from those files, an infrastructure digital twin can be synchronized with rich engineering data aligned across disciplines, with 3D graphics, and perhaps augmented and with generated reality context. So then a lead engineer can validate the design in the context of the entire design, perhaps leveraging advanced AI-enhanced visualizations from NVIDIA Omniverse as part of that, identifying clashes with Bentley's design review capabilities, performing carbon calculations because you have that rich engineering BIM data all synchronized and harmonized together. And the feedback can then be easily communicated back to the engineer, who can resolve the issues in their native design applications with the full context of the issue from the infrastructure digital twin. So this improves quality, speeding delivery, and resulting in more sustainable infrastructure because it's building these data-centric workflows on their legacy existing structured file-based workflows.
And if I may, Richard, again, I suppose we look at all the different industries, and every industry says, well, our workflow is different.
Yes.
And we're special. And with Omniverse being kind of the platform to mix and match with everything, how do you address that ability to be able to plug into different industries, different everything?
Well, great question. And the whole design and philosophy behind Omniverse is to be able to have companies extend and enhance their existing workflows, to bring new capabilities, what we call like superpowers to their workflows, whether it's AI, real-time photorealistic rendering, collaboration across locations. You can think of it as an analogy of an operating system for the industrial metaverse. Companies connect their existing workflows to it. They can customize and modernize. They can build applications on top of it. They can extend it. They can make it their own. So the workflow that's being used in the automotive industry around Omniverse can be very different than the workflow that's being used in the architectural or the media and entertainment or whatever, because they're brought in and they're customized for their particular use case. And that's what makes the platform so desirable by customers and ISVs, our software vendors, together, because we're not out to build something that they're already doing. We don't want to replace their workflows. We want to enhance them. And so that was from day one, the philosophy behind Omniverse. Extend and enhance.
And as I've seen people kind of start to use the systems and see how that ecosystem, for want of a better word, works, is in some ways, in some industries, that's a new way of thinking, because before it was like, well, you bought a silo and you did everything in one thing, right? It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, when they were on-prem or on-premise, here's our machine, here's what you're doing with our machine and the software that we put on our machine, and here you go, and you're kind of locked into that. Right now, there's all of that goes away when everything is now cloud-centric and collaborative and everything else. You can't survive in that kind of a philosophical environment. You have to be open and extensible. And what we love about the ecosystem, there's hundreds of connections to the platform, and there's many ways to connect to the platform. You can connect so that it's a real-time, live, bi-directional. If I change something in my app, it changes in Omniverse and vice versa. You can connect just one way to it. You can export to it. So like an operating system, there's many ways to connect into the platform, and then once you're there, what you do with it is really what the next generation of workflows is all about.
Right. One final question, if I may. One great comment I heard on the panel last week was from Michel from BMW. And Lori, he mentioned the fact that, hey, look, the technology's so cool and look at all the value we can get, but we have to make it fun. and it's a way of attracting new talent, new generations. What do they mean by this?
Yeah, so Kevin, for sure, the new generation of workers is hungry for technology. They want to be immersed. They expect it. So, a great real world example of this immersion is the ITER project in southern France. You've got 35 nations collaborating to build the world's largest tokamak, first fusion device to produce net positive energy. And although their official language in ITER is English, there's more than 45 native languages being spoken in the head office. So you can imagine, perhaps that's not so fun. You can imagine the challenges. So to overcome these language and communication barriers, Brigantium is leveraging LumenRT for NVIDIA Omniverse and Bentley iTwins to produce interactive 4D models to simulate the construction scheduling. So you can actually visualize with AI-enhanced graphics, with full rich engineering BIM data, the construction scheduling process for the project. And this is just intuitively understood by everybody. It vastly improves communication, making the work environment more fun.
Mm.
And Richard, just before I come to you, Lori, one quick one. A lot of people are still trying to get their heads around 3D models and spatial. And you said 4D.
Yep.
What's 4D?
So 4D incorporates the concept of time and change. So construction happens over time. So a 4D construction schedule will show the progression of the construction over time, watching the project come to life, so to speak, over time as it is constructed.
Mm.
And I've seen examples where it's down to the level of, well, this machine needs to come in and do this, and then that machine needs to come in. And sometimes if you don't visualize that, it's like the two machines can't be there at the same time. So,
and you can also use AI to simulate different scenarios in time. So you actually get the capability of like a time machine using the platform, because you can say, well, what happens if we do this? Okay, what happens if we do that? And so you have these powers at your disposal, which makes it, increasingly fun. And, to your question about what keeps it fun, I think, like we're seeing with BMW and their example of building their next factory completely virtual first. They're going to have employees in the factory this year that won't be physically built until 2025. And that's a whole lot of fun for their workers, because they're getting to see what the factory is going to look like, how it's going to be laid out, train their robots, all these other things. And that's incredibly exciting, because typically they would have had to wait for everything to be done before they could get in there. They'll be working fully before it's even permanently done in the physical world. So that's a whole lot of fun as well.
And, the ability, as you say, that they can start getting in there, they can start seeing the workspaces. If there's some issue that I'm reaching too much, or there's
Right.
something's going wrong, you get all this in the design long before anyone builds it, and then you go, oh, we need to redesign it.
Yeah.
And I think the key thing, and it was a huge, a team right through GTC. A lot of people look at a digital twin and they say, well, it's a nice 3D model representation, but it's all about
much
this
more.
simulation.
Yeah.
And iterations and real-time simulation, right? That's where we're headed. You can train your AI robot in the virtual world.
Absolutely. And the key there is the true to reality simulation. You don't want to train a robot or autonomous vehicle in a representative simulation of the real world. That's not good. You want to have to be in a true to reality simulation, and that's what we provide on the platform. So no matter what aspect of that device you're training, the robot or the car or whatever, it's going to be exact duplicate of what's taking place in the physical world, which is essential for proper training.
And Lori, this is back to your point earlier, where it's about that synchronization in real time with that iTwin, so that you get that closed loop, right?
Exactly. It's augmenting with real-time IoT devices, bringing back from the physical world, synchronizing back from the physical world, like I said, with IoT devices, but it's also making sure that, and I'll double down on what Richard was talking about, that it is engineering grade, that it is physics based, that it is open and extensible. There's a lot of rich engineering data in infrastructure, a lot of attributes, a lot of data that is represented in a schema, and so it is more than the 3D graphics. Having that rich engineering data aligned in an iTwin for infrastructure, that then can be mobilized and leveraging aspects of say, NVIDIA Omniverse along the way. It's just a holistic approach.
And yeah, it's not just one stage in that product, that building, that project. It's the whole life cycle, right?
Right.
It's from I thought about it to I'm retiring it.
Exactly. And mobilizing information across that life cycle, learning from operations in your next design. That's only made available if we pull the data out of the files and expose it in digital twins.
People that know me, I'm a big fan of the industrial metaverse. I absolutely agree. We're not there yet. I'm not sure we'll ever be there yet. It's like digitalization, right? We'll always find something new to go do or add on. But this is happening. And my thing to anybody is that if you think this is not happening, ignore this at your peril. Last comment or last question to both of you. Richard, for anyone listening, if you were to give them one piece of advice as to, they go, industrial metaverse, what should I do? What should they do?
Embrace it. Like you said, it's coming. It is the natural extension of where we've been at on the web today, to a natural extension of everything being 3D. We live and exist in a 3D environment. It's a natural progression to move away from this 2D world that we do on the internet today to a fully immersive 3D world. Whether you're designing a car or whether you're buying a car or whether you're designing a building or you're walking through the building, you want to have that rich experience and you want to be able to grab hold of it. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to be wearing a headset and floating avatars and all of that. That's simply a mechanism with which you can experience 3D. I can grab a 3D object in my screen, I can manipulate it with my mouse, things like that. That's what we're going to see become seamless across different environments. You can do that today in isolation of different applications, but you really can't say, okay, I'm going to take this car, I'm going to drop it into this location, and I'm going to do something with it. But that's coming, and that's what's really exciting, and that's what people should embrace, that it's coming.
And Lori, from Bentley's side, what advice do you give to folks?
Yeah, so I agree with embracing it, and I think to go a little bit deeper, identifying key individuals and key projects within your organization to work closely with your technology partners, and specifically, looking for technology partners that are embracing these open concepts, identifying those key individuals to determine what aspects can be brought to bear today to help solve your business challenges, whether it's winning more competitive business, building more sustainable infrastructure. While the metaverse isn't here, there are things that are here today that you can get started with. And working through the change management of that to incorporate those is something that people should get started with.
No, I agreed. Yeah, it's not going to happen tomorrow morning, but I certainly believe we're building bits of it already. And, if you think it's going fast now and you look at all the announcements from last week and whatever, we're just getting started.
Right.
This is buckle up. Lori, Richard, come here. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you well. We'll see you somewhere in the real world. And if not, we'll see you in the industrial metaverse somewhere.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.